Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of From a Woman to a Leader, a podcast dedicated to discussing women's challenges in the tech industry. I'm your host, Limor Bergman-Gross, and today I'm very excited to share that I spoke with a special guest called Claudia Bruce-Quartey. Claudia and I actually met through a training both of us did together, and we clicked and spoke with one another, and we figured out Claudia has so much to share that I wanted to bring her on my podcast. And just a little bit about Claudia. She has spent the last 7 years working with large software and Fortune 500 companies. She is a key account manager at Red Hat. And she's also on a mission, like myself, to empower women in tech to break through barriers, especially when it comes to negotiating for what you truly deserve. And that's why she's so good for this podcast season. And in this episode, Claudia shares her incredible journey from starting out as a political scientist with dreams of joining the United Nations to becoming a leading advocate for women in tech. And you'll hear how she helped hundreds of women overcome insecurities, master the art of negotiation, and achieve career growth they've always wanted. But this conversation is not just inspirational, but also Claudia shares very practical, actionable strategies to boost your confidence, understand your worth, and become unstoppable in your career. It doesn't matter if it's about salary negotiation, promotion, or handling rejection. This episode has something for everyone, and I hope you'll stick around, and let's dive right in. Hi, Claudia. How are you?
Hi, Limor. Thank you. Great. Thank you. How are you doing?
Pretty good. So excited having you here today.
Same here. Same here.
And yes, I'm super excited to the conversation we're going to have. And let's start because we are all talking about negotiations and negotiate like a woman this season. And let's start with the question why women even need to know how to negotiate, especially in tech and male-dominant field.
Right. So I think it's a great question because, and I can start with a personal story. So when I got into the tech field, I do not have a tech background, just to be clear about that. I'm a political scientist, right? So I wanted to join the United Nations, things like that. When I joined the tech industry, I didn't negotiate my salary. And little did I know, little women actually negotiate the salary whenever they join any type of company, because there's this type of us being groomed into being grateful versus actually acknowledging the services that we bring to the table and negotiating based off of that. So when I just started, I was just happy to get the job. But the downside about this, that first of all, there's bias towards a lot of women. There's bias that when they start in mostly any industry, the salary women are offered is 20 to 30 to at times 50% lower than that of a male counterpart. And this is statistics from 2024. So it's nothing that out of the 1950s. That's number one. So based off of that, even when you're negotiating as a woman, you have to understand you're negotiating from a very, very low point. When you take that into, pension, going even, further down the line, you leave so much money on the table because you started very, very low. You will have to negotiate further up. And the thing is, as women, mostly we also go out of the workforce due to several different things, such as childcare or caring for other people, right? So this is also another gap that really, really cuts into our purchasing power. So that's why it's important to negotiate.
Yes, absolutely. And we also talked about the need to understand the long-term impact of negotiating, not just the short term. Can you elaborate that a little bit?
Yes. So there are several studies that are going on at this point in time from HBR, from different bodies and institutes. But the long-term impact for women specifically as it pertains to them growing old, we don't just have a gender pay gap, we also have a care pay gap. We also have a pension pay gap, meaning that as women, we grow so much older than other generations. But the downside is that you find so many elderly women that go into poverty once their spouse is no more, or once they're living on their own, because it used to be that their spouses make up so much more than women. So when you are not contributing actively towards your pension fund, or when you are contributing but the pay that you're having initially when you started your work is very low, it impacts you on the long term towards your pension. But also just take, I mean, you don't even have to go that far into the pension. Just take you having children, you as a woman, you paying for insurances, you paying for taxes. There are so many things in which women today are just being at a disadvantage because we pay so much more. If you are a woman and you want to go for health insurance, you pay just so much more than a man would pay for that. And in that aspect, it is so important that we as women understand that we have to negotiate. It is not so to that sense of greed, but as an act of self-love towards ourselves and our future, this is what we need to be doing.
Completely agree with you. And I would also add that when you start low, it impacts years to come. So you start low. And I know that being a manager, like I hired people or, inherited kind of teams and people who started low, not just women, by the way, it was very, very difficult to fix that gap.
Totally.
Because usually, the increases are kind of 3%, maybe it's a little bit more, but you have to really make sure that the entry point is what you should get.
Totally. On that note, I think about 3-4 years ago, I saw a LinkedIn post that shocked me to the bones, because there's a woman that was working at Cisco at that point in time for 15 years. She entered into the highest ranks of cybersecurity, and she mentioned that within that 15 years, she got around about 2-3 promotions and didn't get that much of a salary increase. She then quit, and within the next 3 years, whatever that she couldn't make within the 15 years, she made up in just 3 years. So she not just doubled her salary, but she also had been negotiating that salary, getting the salary she wants, and being promoted multiple times. So just to say that, coming to your point, when you start low at the company, it is very, very difficult, to kind of make up for that gap. So it's not to say job hop, no, but it's to say start strong wherever you're going, understand what you're worth, understand what you're bringing to the table, and ask for it.
For sure. And women don't feel comfortable asking for it. And I want to kind of dive into how do you position yourself as worthy, as, being good enough to ask for what you should deserve.
Right. I think the first thing, because I struggled with it myself for so long, and the biggest mistake that I had seen with myself, also with women that I teach and coach, is that we dismiss so much of our past experiences. We believe that all the things that we've done so far are just without seeing. It's normal that you can, whip up an Excel file and understand things. It is normal that you can organize projects. It is we just think it is all normal. It is just part of the job. But I always say, take yourself out of the equation. If you were not to be in a certain project, if you were not in a certain software development project, what would break? What will not happen? What will not be achieved? What will not be accomplished? When you understand that, you actually start understanding the value that you bring to an organization. And it's that where you have to start. What are all of my accomplishments that I've achieved so far? And not just the accomplishments that you have brought into the organization whilst you were in the organization. Take all of your certification, take all of your degrees, take all of the time that you are networking, everything that makes you better at your current job. Take all of these things into account to understand that you are valuable. You bring very much to the table that is going to help in an organization move forward.
For sure. And this is so true. I mean, we don't value ourselves enough. And I'm talking we because I suffer from that as well. And I want to also mention here that as women, we also need to think about what is our unique value proposition. What are unique things that we provide? And, I struggle with that for many years because I tried always to compare myself to my male counterparts.
Oh, yes.
And that's such a mistake.
Yes.
Instead, when I started thinking about, I'm actually not the same, not just for men, but women. I bring something that is unique. And what are really the things that I bring that are uniquely mine that will benefit a future employer?
Right.
Then I start to realize what I'm really good at and what
Right.
values I bring.
Totally. And I think it's so beautiful. The issue that I see for which many women actually don't go that far is that we have been taught that, again, it comes without saying that you are there, right? We should be nice. We shouldn't be bragging. We shouldn't be brave. We're just there to get good grades, and someone will notice us.
Yeah.
Someone will notice the things that we bring to the table. Well, the work in school, this works, where you have a teacher who notices you and gives you good grades. Unfortunately, in the workforce, it doesn't work. People don't notice you. And if you have been taught from house to, keep things to yourself and not talk about your accomplishments, well, someone with less or half of your experience will be promoted before you. That is bias, but these are things that will happen because you didn't learn how to, advocate for yourself and speak up for yourself. So I think what you're doing is a great point. It's a valid point.
For sure. And I hear that all the time. I mean, for so many women. So it's we cannot say enough. You need to you need to externalize your value, not just do the work. And let's kind of dive into strategies. I know that you have a lot of strategies to share. So okay, let's say I realize my value. I know how much I'm worth. How do you negotiate? What kind of tips do you have for me? And I want to negotiate comfortably,
right,
with how I want to negotiate, like things that align with me and my values.
Right. That's a great question because so we all think that negotiation is a one-off thing, that you have your manager review at the end or at the beginning of the year and you talk about all of your accomplishments and then you're going to get the money or you're going to get the rewards. But actually negotiation is something that happens throughout. And I want to reframe that. Negotiation is not something that you're just asking for and getting, but actually something that you're also giving. Because I believe that it's every candidate's job, no matter who you are, male or female, that throughout the year you show your value towards the organization. When you do that throughout, have intentional quarterly connects, for example, and I'm someone who's very, very actionable. So if every quarter, for example, you set up a meeting with your manager and you just walk through your activities, the outcome of these activities, the result of these activities, how they impact either your organization, a department, a project, and you run your manager through it and you run other people within the organization through it, already your value is being elevated to a much higher degree than when you wait until the end of the year for a one-off. So that pressure that you have will walk away because it is something, first of all, that gets you to the practice and to the habit of talking about your accomplishments, not in an icky way, but actually just showing, well, this is, the project that I've led. This is the stakeholders that I've brought in. Here is a launch project that I'm suggesting. Here's a tweak that I'm suggesting. These are the results that either I'm anticipating or that I've already measured. And I think it's also very important to see that this is something that I'm anticipating. Project yourself to the future because also this shows your employer your potential. How far are you going to go? How valuable can you become for that organization within the next 12 months, right? How far can you go? And this is what's going to elevate you. Coming back to the positioning, this is how you can position yourself.
For sure. And it's like, I know that many women, they rely on their manager to initiate those discussions or they wait until performance reviews or whatever. You don't have to wait for that. As you said,
No.
You can totally initiate those discussions. And I think you mentioned something like brag bag. I mean, I would love to touch about that because you mentioned showing what you've done. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So Yes, you did. That's the life of a woman in tech with kids in the house.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We keep it real here.
We keep it real here. Yes. So I keep what I call a brag bag or a brag book. You can call it a brag bag, you can call it whatever you want. But actually what it is a record of all of your accomplishment, all of your certifications, everything that you've done. And I do it weekly. Why weekly? Because human beings, we tend to forget what we've done even just yesterday, right? But throughout the week, you find that you are putting out fires here. You are making a difficult call over there. You're bringing together different stakeholders that wouldn't have talked to each other otherwise, right? You're making sales and engineers talk, for example, if we in tech, right? So you're making all of these different initiatives, write them down. Every Wednesday or Monday, whatever day you want to choose, write down these accomplishments. And I go by a very, very easy framework. You can take PAR, for example. So the problem that you were facing, the actions that you took to address these problems, right? And the result. So that is a very easy framework that, by the way, you can also use during interviews. You can use, at any type of negotiation. But if you keep that structured framework for yourselves, it gives you an easy way to collect those accomplishments along the line.
Definitely. And I think you also mentioned in our pre-call the STAR method. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, exactly. So the STAR method is basically a extended way of it. So it is the situation, the task, the action, and the result, where you describe the situation in which you were, for example, that you were being tasked to lead a project, and the task was that you have to, you're the project manager, you have to bring together different stakeholders, for example, right? And then all the actions that led up towards solving that problem, and then the results being, for example, well, because of your activities, you were able to launch a software in time and within budget, making sure that customers were satisfied, right? And again, these are different frameworks that you can use, all under the context of the behavioral interview frameworks that you can use to really showcase the unique value that you bring to the table. Also, the reason why I love frameworks, here's what they do. A lot of people struggle with nerves when they are in a negotiation. Normal, right? They struggle with confidence. But when you have a structured approach, as in you just have to fill in the blanks, it gives you an easy, guide to use and to walk through it without, even if you would fumble, you get your point across in a clear and concise way. And this is what is needed when you're at the negotiation table, right? People feel off of other people's energy. I have 2 clients tell me, I went towards these interviews and at the end of the day, I didn't get it because people told me, well, we felt that you were not confident enough. And they were actually told that, right? So I think these are easy frameworks to work through it, because confidence at the end of the day, to me at least, can be built through competence, through doing, through rehearsing, through action. So when you have a framework that is as easy as that, you get into the competence, you get into the confidence.
For sure. And you mentioned here also the frameworks. One thing that I think that many women don't realize is that you don't just talk about, okay, I did XYZ, like this is the work I did. You show the manager or in interviews everything that went into place. Like maybe you worked on a project and you deliver it on time. Okay, those are the external things. But what about all the challenges that you faced? What about how you solved different situations? What about, maybe conflicts that rose and you were able to solve them? So it's like talking about the actions, like, okay, those are the things that I anticipated. This is what happened. This is how I solve those problems is also important, because you don't just talk about this was the project, I delivered it. You share everything that went into that.
Right, definitely. I think it is so important that I talk about it as the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it is in these, quote unquote, ugly moments, in these difficult, challenging moments, that actually, I believe that leaders are being born, that you're being shaped, that you come out of your comfort zone, that you actually understand what you're made out of. Because especially for women, we underrate our abilities and capabilities so much when we when we hit a road, a bumpy road or a challenge, we're like, oh gosh, we start comparing ourselves to other people. This person is doing it so much better than I am because I'm struggling so much. But actually, no, everyone struggles. That's number one. You have to understand that no one is perfect. The second thing is that because you are struggling, that's actually the best way to reach out. At times we're afraid to look stupid. We don't want to reach out. We want to look confident. We don't want other people to actually, see that, oh my God, we are fraud. We actually don't know what we're doing here. But that's the best way. I have sat in a room with some of the most intelligent people. And one thing I can tell you, they are not the most intelligent people in the room. They actually have other people. What they do is ask very, very great questions. And that's what makes them intelligent, because they're able to question their own inabilities and say, hey, I don't know that, right? But I know an expert. I know actually several experts, and I'm able to bring them together. And I think for us women, we are natural. That's how I say, we are natural communicators, bringing people together, wanting communities. We should leverage that in any job that we go. We don't have to do things on our own and ourselves. We can work with our innate natural abilities, for some more, for some less, right? That can work with us instead of working against us.
Absolutely. And I see showing, or telling about things you don't know as a great strength. And we shouldn't shy away from that. I mean, I will just caveat it that it really depends on the environment you're at. I've been in toxic environments where everything you say can be held against you. And if you are working in that kind of an environment, you may need to adjust a little bit and ask yourself if that's the environment you want to work at. But if you work in a healthy, supportive, inclusive environment, then I would say talking about what you don't know, sharing about struggles, and maybe even things you failed is a good, healthy thing and shows strength, shows resiliency, shows how great you are.
Totally. I think it is so important to understand that not everyone has the privilege to work in an environment in which, their opinions are welcome. I have been in toxic work environments and know it so well. So find your ally, right? Find that one person, that one peer that is able to hear you, and that will not judge you, that will make you feel safe to share about who you are, right? And from there on, find that tribe that's going to help you really, truly, open up about things.
For sure. And Claudia, I want to make sure that we talk also about rejections, right? Because this is part of life. And no matter if you're trying to negotiate for a promotion, for a salary increase, or for a new job offer, you may get no, you may get rejection.
100%.
So how do you handle rejections? What's your tips?
So I will talk off of my personal experience of how I have handled rejections, right? Because we all go through it, and I am not in any type of way. I'm also accustomed to that. How I handle rejection is I used to take it very much to heart, first of all, right? Now, I just want to hold space for everyone who goes through that. I used to think something is wrong with me. And to be fair, at times you go through so many rejections that I still think, hey, my God, why is this happening to me right now at this point in time, right? Right now I reframe it, understanding it is just part of life. It is part of, the process that we have to go through. And when you have rejection, don't think that something's wrong with you, but maybe, it wasn't the right timing, it wasn't the right fit. There's so many different reasons for which you will be rejected. One thing that I also do, that I encourage anyone to do, and I know it's a tough one, is when you receive a no, be it for a job offer, be it for a promotion, be it for anything you're asking for, go back and ask why. Why wasn't it the right time? What specifically about this caused the outcome? And you'll find that if it's really genuine and it's really not the right time, you will get an answer. You'll get an answer of what you can improve upon, so that next time around, the no will turn into a yes.
This is very good advice. And don't give up so easily, right? We need to build resiliency in general, right?
Yes.
And if you get a no, then it's absolutely your right to ask,
right?
Okay, what do I need to do in order to get to that promotion or whatever?
Absolutely.
And don't just say, okay, I'm backing off. No, just kind of stand up for yourself. Or if you reject, I mean, I think that for job interviews, I would say rejections, it's just part of the game. Like,
yes,
no person, even the most confident person, always got every job they interviewed for.
It's part of, I mean, I don't know for how many jobs I've received a no. It's been, and even for jobs where I thought, okay, this is truly going well. Like, and then at the last point, I become the second. It's between me and another person, I just become the second person, right? So I think it's part of the game, as we say, and you grow a thick skin. It is okay to feel for some time, like to be really connected to your feelings. Say, you know, something, this one really bothered me. This one is something that I really thought it would work out, right? Definitely do not dismiss your feelings, but also don't dwell on them, that they cripple you so much that you don't move forward. I think that is where you have to know, okay, now I have to move on.
Yeah, and women that I work with, sometimes they are looking for jobs. And just today, I had a client who is looking for a job, and she said, "Oh, I actually have two positions. I'm not sure about. Like, they're not exactly locations. I think I'm not exactly where she wants to work at." And I said, "Well, actually, there may be the best opportunities for you to practice." Interviewing and practice maybe getting rejection, because it's not going to hurt as much. So, Claudia, is there anything else that I forgot to ask, or maybe you think is important to emphasize regarding this topic?
Yes. So I think one thing that I found for myself is the following. Especially when you're going for interviews, especially when you're negotiating, especially when, you know, you are in a position where you think that you are in a lesser position, there's one very critical reframe that I make. Start with yourself, meaning understand your own values. Just as you're going for interviews, just as you're negotiating, understand what is the unique value proposition that you bring to the table. What are your non-negotiables? What is the flexibility that you need? What is the culture that you need to see? Where do you thrive the most? If you go into an interview, if you go for negotiations and you do not start with yourself, with your own values, you will immediately start with a lesser position. But if you know for sure 1,000%, this is what you've done for your past organization, these are the results that you brought to the table, this is how you can actually project yourself with that new company or even your current position, right? These are the things that you can bring to the table. You bring your values, you breed that confidence, and it will show through the way you act, through the way you talk, through the things that you bring to the table. And immediately it shifts you to become from a person that is kind of asking and begging towards a person that actually deserves it. Right. So this is one thing that I would love to leave with, that start with yourself and do not dismiss your own value, because no one else will believe in you the way you do it for yourself.
Amen to that. Definitely. I mean, self-belief, self-confidence, I mean, just the inner work, I would say, is where you start. Because if you don't value yourself, no one else will value you. So definitely, I mean, it starts with you. And before we part ways for today, I want first to thank you for all the actionable advice. And how can people find more about you and what you do?
So first of all, thank you, Limo, also for having me on your podcast. I believe it's always an honor to be speaking to more women and men, by the way, on, you know, the importance of how can we advance the voices of many people that are underrepresented in industries such as tech and STEM as a whole. Where you can connect with me is on LinkedIn. I'm there all day, every day. So definitely connect with me at claudiabruce-quartey.com, where I share much and more on negotiations, beating insecurities, and interview skills as a mom and dad.
Perfect. And I'll put the LinkedIn profile in the show notes. Thank you so much, Claudia. Fantastic. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today.
Been a pleasure, Limor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining in for this insightful conversation with Claudia, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I've got something for you lined up for next week that I think you're gonna like. I'm speaking with Keisha Winter, and she's an HR veteran with over 20 years of experience at Fortune 500 companies like Citibank and GE. And Keisha is going to share how she went from accepting offers blindly to commanding her worth in every negotiation. She will walk us through key steps like building your brag bank to showcase your contributions, and also how to approach your boss with confidence to ask for what you deserve. One of her quotes that really stuck with me is, "If you think you're asking for too much, you're probably asking for too little." So don't miss out this chance to learn the exact strategies to shift your mindset and get paid what you're truly worth. So I'll see you next week. And as always, if you like this episode with Claudia, please share it and subscribe to my podcast to never miss another episode. And as always, I'm always looking forward to hearing from you. Share with me what you liked and what you would like to hear next, what kind of guests you want me to bring, and what topics you want me to talk about. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.